Okay, and we are going to dig into the NFL Power Rankings for Week 4, and I'm going to go from 10 to 1 with respect to a few teams, which I will give you some high praise. There are only so many teams, 10, that can make the top 10 list. So we're going to go, like I said, from 10 to 1. Starting at number 10, I have Houston. Bovada has at plus 2,500 to win the Super Bowl this season. I like Houston this year. Deshaun Watson, obviously very good. They are a team that, outside of a very, very, very late field goal in Week 1, that lost to New Orleans to start the season in New Orleans, they are a team that could have easily been 3-0. Yes, I know they could have also lost that second week game to Jacksonville. They held on a 2-point conversion attempt from Jacksonville. They won that game very, very close. But I like this Houston team. Deshaun Watson can get it going. I have to have some faith that Houston can fix the offensive line issues. Deshaun Watson, he's taking too many hits. Some of that is him. He holds onto the ball too long. He tries to make plays. It makes me nervous every time I see him scramble. It makes me nervous every time I see his offensive lineman peeling him up off the floor. But he has weapons everywhere. DeAndre Hopkins is fantastic. I think he's probably the best receiver in the league. He can produce no matter who's throwing him the ball. And with Watson throwing, he's a force. I like the addition of Stills. I like Will Fuller every single week. He is a big play guy. And then the running game is really going for Houston as well. On defense, I wish they hadn't traded Clowney, but you got to do what you got to do. I understand the economics of the game. They weren't going to be able to extend him, so they let him go to Seattle. But this defense is still pretty good as well. I think this is a team that's going to improve. I don't think this division is a waltz by any means. I think Jacksonville is better, especially with Gardner Minshew coming up. I think they're better than people think that they are. I think that Tennessee plays everybody strong, and I think that Indianapolis, even without Andrew Luck, is a very, very good team. So this isn't going to be an easy division for them to get through, but I do like this team, and like I said, I think they will get better and better by the week. Now, I did mention Indianapolis. They did not make my list. They're high on my list, though. I'm very high on this team. They have certainly potential to get in there. No disrespect at all to Indianapolis. I like Jacoby Brissett. I've been saying it ever since Andrew Luck retired. They do have the ability to get in this list. I like what Marlon Mack is doing. Very, very good team there. I think Bovada has them at plus 4,000. If you're into Super Bowl future betting, I think that is a team that could be competing. But of course, in the AFC, New England and Kansas City are just a cut above everybody else. Number 9 on my list, moving it on, Detroit. Bovada has at plus 4,000. I said last week that if Detroit took care of business against a good Philadelphia team, that they would make the list, and here they are, premiering at number 9. 2-0-1. They should be 3-0. They really collapsed against Arizona the first week of the season. The second week, they beat the Chargers. Third week, they beat the Eagles. Now, there are circumstances, right? The devil's advocate side of things say, well, they collapsed against Arizona in the first week. The Chargers missed makeable field goals in the second week. And then the third week, the Eagles didn't have their top 2 receivers. Bottom line is this team is performing. This offense is interesting to watch. Darrell Bevell-led offense. They are, you know what they are. They're a team that wants to establish the run and take their opportunities in the passing game when they come. They're not a super high-flying, high-scoring offense as we've seen in the past with Detroit, but they're effective and they're undefeated. It's working pretty well. I like Kerryon Johnson. I want to see him ascend a little bit more. I like the young guy Ty Johnson. I like the pieces in the passing game, Galladay, Marvin Jones, and the rookie Hawkinson. I know Hawkinson hasn't performed super well statistically as of late, but that will come through. Matt Stafford, we know he can pass for thousands and thousands of yards. This year he's taken kind of a back seat and trusting the process, and it's working so far. 2-0-1. Detroit's doing some good things, so there is some respect to Detroit. Number 8 on my list, Buffalo, is plus 4,000. Now they're 3-0. I didn't like actually what I saw against Cincinnati last week. I thought that this was an opportunity for Buffalo to come out and really take charge. Now credit Cincinnati because they played tougher than they had in their first 2 weeks. But Josh Allen, he threw a bad interception. This team, the defense is solid. They've been solid for years. McDermott, I think, is a great head coach, and I like the offensive system, but they have to get better. I think Josh Allen has to get a little bit better for them to improve, but hey, they're in my top 10, and they're undefeated. Big test this week against New England. We'll see what happens. I tend to think New England is going to take advantage there and do pretty well. And I think that they'll run away with this game. But, Buffalo, it's no disrespect to Buffalo. I just think New England's that good. Buffalo, I love the defense. I want to see the offense. I see the potential there. I need to see Josh Allen be a little bit more accurate and take a little bit more care of the ball. But he is just a second-year player. He was raw coming out of college. He's still kind of learning the position and what it is to be an NFL quarterback, and he is leaps and bounds better than he was last year. So respect to Buffalo. They're doing good things, undefeated. It's nice to see. Fans enthusiastic in Buffalo again. I think the NFL's always a little better when Buffalo fans, and Buffalo has something to cheer for. I grew up in that big era with Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas and all those guys, James Lofton, Andre Reed. I liked watching those teams play. So it's fun for me. It's like a little nostalgic to see Buffalo doing well. So good for Buffalo. Number 7 on my list, the best 2-1 team in football, Baltimore Ravens. Look, I think they've been in the top 5 on my list since I've been doing these power rankings. That game against Kansas City was fantastic to watch. Yes, I know Kansas City kind of controlled that game. That game ended closer than it was, but this game was a sloppy field. I think it really came down to Patrick Mahomes could execute passes a little bit better in the rain than Lamar Jackson was able to. Baltimore had their opportunities. They were aggressive. They went for it on 4th down quite a bit. They went for 2. And then, they were trying to punish Mahomes, bully him a little bit, get in his face and hit him. I think there were a couple roughing the passer penalties and those things, late hits and all that. And I think that's what you got to do. You got to rough him up and intimidate him. I think they had a good game plan. But Baltimore's passing defense, there are some issues there that they need to figure out. And when you play a team like Kansas City, who, no joke, is probably the best passing offense that I've ever seen, they have speed everywhere. Yes, Baltimore was able to kind of control the run game there against Kansas City, but and Baltimore was able to control the clock. People are saying they got more first downs and yada, yada, yada. Well, that's all well and good, but when Kansas City can score in 30 seconds, on a 50-yard touchdown pass, the other teams are going to control the clock and have more first downs. That's just how it works. But Baltimore, I think they're the 3rd best team in the AFC. I think on a neutral field, if they weren't playing in Kansas City, or maybe even if this game was in Baltimore, it could have been a different story. If Baltimore was able to execute on some of those 2-point conversions, could have been a different story in that game. Very, very interesting game. I love Baltimore. They just ran into a team that's, I think, playing at peak precision in the passing game. Kansas City has room to get better. Baltimore has room to get better. If Lamar Jackson hit a little bit more of his passes, especially on some of those 4th downs, again, we could be talking about the Ravens being the number 2 team on my list right now. So very close. I'm not going to downgrade Baltimore too much for losing a game. I did a little bit. They moved down behind some other 3-0 teams, but believe me, they'll move back up. I like Baltimore quite a bit. Bovada has Baltimore at plus 2,500. Still probably my favorite futures bet of the year. I think that's great value for this team. Moving it here, number 6, San Francisco. Now, San Francisco's turning the ball over too much. I don't like that. But when you turn the ball over like 4 times in the first half to Pittsburgh, and you still come out and win and really can kind of control the game in the second half, I mean, that says something. This team can run the ball, and I love their front 4 on defense. So you'll see, like on these lists in my power rankings, if you can play good defense in the defensive line, if you can get a pass rush with 4, okay, and you can drop 7 into coverage on passing downs, or you can pressure and penetrate the line on running plays. Basically, if you can control that line of scrimmage on the offense and the defense, then you're going to be winning a lot of games. You're going to be high on my power rankings list. So we know San Francisco can run, and we know they play good defense up front. I like their secondary more. The offense has to be a little bit more precise. Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, will get this cleaned up. Kyle Shanahan, he's going to rely on the run. This running game is efficient even without Tevin Coleman, their starter, even with Jerick McKinnon on the IR for a second year. You got Breida, you got Mostert, and you got Wilson Jr., basically a 3-headed monster at running back there. I like what they can do. And these receivers, especially when Jalen Hurd comes back, back from injury. These receivers, Deebo Samuel, Dante Pettis, Marquise Goodwin, Bourne, they just have weapons everywhere. If they could do, I know that this is probably not going to happen, but if they could add like Jalen Ramsey in a trade, this team could open a Super Bowl window. I don't think they're there yet this year, but the NFC is proving itself to be a pretty wide open conference. Oddly enough, I think Dallas and Philadelphia are probably the two best teams. Philadelphia being 1 and 2, they did not make the list, but they lost 2 games without their receiving core. So, you're not going to win a lot of games when Nelson Aguilar is drawing the most targets in your team. Anyway, so they're San Francisco. I like them. Number 5 on my list is the LA Rams. I have them at plus 800 according to Bovada. And San Francisco, what did Bovada have them at? Plus 2,000. So, they're moving up in their odds. The Rams, like I said, they're plus 800. We're into 3-0 teams now. The Rams, I still don't think they're at peak precision. I still think there's a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover, or maybe it's that they don't play their starters during the preseason at all. There's a little bit of rust there. They need to give the ball to Todd Gurley more. Sean McVay has already come out and said as much. I do believe that Gurley will have a bigger week this week in fantasy. And statistically, if you don't play fantasy football, but if you're looking for, prop bets for Todd Gurley, I think he's probably going to be on the over on most of those. I do think he'll find the end zone this week. This whole running back by committee, Malcolm Brown stuff, that's all behind us. Gurley is getting the most carries. It's just that they're not running the ball and they're not getting him integrated into the offense. They're just a little rusty, and I would say Sean McVay included, but they'll get it cleaned up. Sean McVay's a smart guy. This is a very talented team. And the defense, man, the defense is good too. They're primed for another Super Bowl run. I like them. They are my number 5 team. Number 4 on my list is Green Bay at plus 1,200 according to Bovada. I like Green Bay's because Green Bay is playing better defense and they can run the ball. Okay, so I struggle. Do I put LA at number 4? Do I put Green Bay at number 4? The reason I put Green Bay ahead of LA at this point, 2 reasons. One, we haven't even seen Aaron Rodgers try to throw the ball yet. This team has been winning basically with running the ball and with defense, which that we never see that with Green Bay, right? This is the influence of the new coaching staff. Mike Pettin's doing a fantastic job defensively. Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, they're doing a great job holding down the fort in the running game. I love the commitment to the running game. But Aaron Rodgers, we haven't even seen him unleashed yet. And I think that's a good thing. I don't think Green Bay's hit their peak, just like I don't think LA has hit their peak. I think if you compare these two teams, Green Bay is actually, I would say LA is probably a better, more talented team and probably a better coached team than Green Bay. However, I just think Green Bay is playing a little better at the moment. And, we'll see, how things shake out throughout the year. I think both of these teams are in better than advertised divisions. Minnesota, Chicago, Detroit, who's better than people anticipated. That's a tough one for Green Bay. We're going to see how things shake out. But Green Bay is already 2-0 in that tough division. The Rams, the 49ers, the Seahawks, they haven't even all started battling each other yet. Okay, number 3 on my list. Green Bay is plus 1,200 according to Bovada. Number 3 on my list is Dallas. Bovada has at plus 1,000. Their odds are continuing to ratchet up. Dak Prescott continues his good play. I was toying with the idea of downgrading them because they had kind of a slow first half against a Miami team, a very motivated Miami team, but they were at home. But then you kind of look, and I watch the games. I watch every game. Ezekiel Elliott did fantastic. You got Tony Pollard did well, even just, kind of spelling Ezekiel Elliott. The passing game wasn't great, but, they have weapons everywhere. Amari Cooper got 2 touchdowns. Michael Gallup has been hurt, so Devin Smith steps in there. He's doing well. Then you got Randall Cobb in the slot. You have Jason Witten and Jarwin at tight end. There's just a lot of weapons. And, of course, we know. What do I say? They can run the ball. Their offensive line is great. Their defense is solid. I think Dallas right now, for my money, is the best team in the NFC. But when Philadelphia gets full strength, with their receivers, I think they're going to be strong. Philadelphia did not make my list, but they're probably the best 1 and 2 team in football. They will have a say in this playoff chase. And I think the division, although they are down 2 games early to Dallas, good for Dallas. Philadelphia, Bovada has at plus 2,200. So they're getting respect as well. That's pretty good odds, especially for a team that doesn't make my top 10 power ranking. Number Number 2 on my list, I don't have a number 2. I have number 1s. I have 2 number 1s on my list for the first time this year. It's a tie. I can't figure out which team is better. Now that New England has cut ties with Antonio Brown, I have Kansas City and New England as number 1s. And I have on my calendar circled already early December, Kansas City versus New England in the regular season. Home field advantage for the AFC Championship game is probably going to be on the line there if both teams can stay healthy. New England's defense is the best it's been in years, maybe since the first of their dynasty runs, back in the early 2000s. Kansas City's offense, the passing game is the best I've ever seen, including the greatest show on turf, including the Colts teams, including the Brady teams, including the Peyton Manning Denver team, is the best passing offense I have ever seen in football, and we're only in year 2 of starting from Mahomes. It's going to be crazy. If he can stay healthy, I think he's going to shatter all the passing records, at least in terms of total touchdowns. I don't know that he'll be able to catch Brady in the total yardage because Brady, I think, is going to play until he can file for Social Security. He's just... Oh, I guess he's just going to play forever. But New England, Bovada has it plus 333, so that's basically a 3 1/3 to 1 odds. Kansas City, Bovada has it plus 500. Both of those are clearly the 2 top favorite teams in the Super Bowl. I think in December, that matchup favors New England based on their defense. But, last 2 years when these teams have played in the regular season, it's been like 45-42 and those kinds of things. So Kansas City, they hired Spagnuolo, the one defensive coordinator who's been able to give the Patriots consistent trouble in playoff games with his time in New York. New England, they had Antonio Brown, but then they got rid of him. So now they're ratcheting up that power run. Kansas City, they can't get the run going yet. I do think that they will get the run going. Damian Williams hasn't been healthy. I know LaShawn McCoy's, his numbers have been better. Damian Williams hasn't been healthy like all early season. He is still the best talented running back there, but LaShawn McCoy's doing well. Both of them are dinged up and hurt. They have some young guys too spelling in and doing some good work in the running game. This Kansas City offense is great. I cannot wait till these two teams match up. They quite possibly could be undefeated in December matching up. It's going to be incredible. Certainly these teams will be favored in every game leading up to there. So we'll see how it goes. I can't wait. Football fans can't wait. So there you go. There's my top 10. I do want to give some respect. I already talked about Indianapolis a little bit. New Orleans, they go into Seattle. They pull off a game there with Bridgewater at quarterback. They're 2-1. They have a light schedule up, although they do play Dallas this week at home. That is going to be a challenge for them. But this New Orleans team, I left them off the list for now. When Drew Brees comes back, I think this team is still going to be primed to make a run in that division. Seattle, I'm not going to give up on Seattle just because they lost a game at home, a winnable game at home against New Orleans. They are going to be going on the road, I believe, to Arizona this week. They, I think, are going to have a good game and bounce back there. I like their odds. Minnesota, 2-1. They took care of business in Oakland. They were probably the closest team to making it back on my list. Here's my concern with them. I think they have a tough matchup. I think they might be playing the Bears this week. I'm curious to see how Dalvin Cook goes against the Bears. That's going to say a lot to me. The winner of that game probably makes the list next week, although I am a little bit more down on Trubisky in Chicago. I'm a little bit higher on Cousins than Trubisky as a quarterback, as long as it's not on national TV. And then Chicago is my last team. They're started to take care of business. They dominated Washington. But again, that's a big week. That's a big game for me. I mean, it's probably like my 11th and 13th teams playing. That's a big deal. The winner probably gets in the top 10 this week. So, hey, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like, comment. We could use your help. We're trying to add more content to YouTube. In order to do that, we want to be able to become a YouTube partner and basically kind of put that YouTube stuff back into the show, back into the network. I'm integrating more Underdog podcast stuff into there. It's not going to be just me. Yes, it's going to be fantasy football dominant during the fantasy football season, but we also have a lot of shows coming in from Underdog, the NFL show. We got a lot of basketball, NBA stuff. It's going to be a full sports network. We have player interviews. We're pretty well connected on the Underdog podcast network. So check us out there. Subscribe if you can. That's the easiest way to help us, and watch some videos. It's really that. It's all free. Just subscribe, watch some videos. If you're listening to this, go to youtube.com/theunderdog. And give us a subscription, watch some videos, and help us grow this thing. Get in on the ground floor. I believe that's it for everything. Go out, have a great week, be good to each other, and get paid if you're going to make some bets.